Good morning, everybody. This is Alan, and today I'm going to show you my Trident maple. It had a little bit of a mishap. I purchased it on Saturday at the Bonsai Society of Florida State Convention, and I had my eyes on three different species. I wanted to get a Trident maple. I wanted to get the very, very small dwarf podocarpus. And I was also thinking about getting a buttonwood. But I did not buy a buttonwood. There was some there, but I don't know. They just didn't thrill me. And that's okay. I did get the dwarf podocarpus and this Trident maple. And I made a video just the other day featuring both of them. I think the title was I got new babies. So this Trident was in this pot, and it's in a bonsai soil, but it fell off the bench Sunday. So it was on the bench only one day. And I don't know how. Could have been critters. The most likely culprit would have been squirrels. Or it could have been high wind, because we've been having afternoon thunderstorms here. Sometimes pretty severe, and I don't want to say severe like, blowing trees down, but pretty heavy-duty winds. So it could have very easily been blown off the bench. If you remember in that first video, that I will leave a link to it right there. This tree was much taller. In fact, it had two leaders that both came up, and they were another foot taller, and it had a lot more growth down here. But when it fell, it kind of fell on its head. So 4 or 5 branches all broke. They were still attached, but they had snapped. And I had intended on taking cuttings anyway. So whoever it was, I guess we can call it Mother Nature, right? Whether it was wind or squirrels, I guess they're both still Mother Nature. So Mother Nature pushed me towards taking some cuttings because the limbs broke. And these are the cuttings right here. And so far, after just a couple of days, we have a little bit of brown leaves. I think perhaps they are in too much sun, so I put them into more shade. I put the main tree into shade just to begin with. And these little hold downs are just a paver that I cut into squares. And because I don't have any big rocks, I have small rocks, but these pavers, I think concrete is actually more dense than some of the rocks. So that will keep it from falling over. And so I took all of the limbs that had broken, plus some other ones that had not broken, and I just took a cutting of everything that I thought would root. This is brand new to me. I've never had a Trident maple, but I used the theory of half-hard wood. So we have, as you see here, all this new growth is just green, real green, green, green. And then the trunk is got that gray, brown. So there's a point in time when a new shoot begins to harden and turns from green to brown. And on many, many trees, that's the best place to take the cutting. So how many of these are going to root? I don't know. They all actually seem to be pretty nice. Like I said, there's some burn. This guy here looks like he's been sunburned a little bit. But, once again, I'm learning about Trident maples right along with you. And there are probably people that are watching this saying, well, I've been growing Trident maples for years. And I wish I could. Maybe I should have taken the plunge sooner. And the problem with any tree that is adapted to more northern climates is that it has to go into a dormancy in the winter. Dormancy for a northern tree is not an option. It's actually a requirement. It's an integral part of the life cycle of the tree. And so that is why it's so hard to grow northern trees as far south as I am on the planet, which is zone 10 in the US, which is minimum temperature is typically around 30, although the last few years we haven't even come close to that. This year our lowest temperature was 37. And so it's a combination of high heat and humidity in the summer, but far more importantly is lack of dormancy in the winter. Because dormancy biochemically creates a situation where all of the energy that the tree has produced through photosynthesis, through growth, through the leaves, is moved down into the roots. The top of the tree still grows, but very, very slowly. And that's where we get the rings. You know, we talk about annual rings. So the tree is still growing. It's still laying down cells, but they're much, much smaller and they're much more tightly packed. And those are the dark rings when you are counting the rings of a tree. And, you know, convention says that one ring equals 1 year because you have active growth in the summer where the cell walls are much further apart. The cells are much larger because they're growing rapidly. That's the whiter area in the ring. And then the dark area is winter. So the tree's still growing, but just barely. And so the cell walls are being laid down. The cells are being laid down, but the walls are much, much closer together. And that's where you get the annual rings. So if you bring a tree that must go dormant to a very mild climate where the temperature just doesn't get low enough to induce dormancy, then the tree will basically grow itself to death. It does not store enough energy in the roots for next year, and it just sort of, over a period of 2, 3, 4 years, it'll just slowly decline and decline and decline. I do know some people who are attempting to grow even more northerly trees like Japanese maples, which I would never even dream of attempting. But they've actually bought refrigerators to put them in over the winter. So who knows? I don't have the time. I have time. I don't have the money or the space for a new refrigerator. So anyway, that's my roundup. My next God, why can't I think? I had my cup of coffee. Are my brain cells dying that rapidly? The next installment on the saga of this tree, I don't know. You know what I mean. I featured it once and now I'm featuring it again. And when the soil fell out of the pot, because I found it, on its side, with about 50% of the soil lying on the ground, I was able to scoop most of it up. And it's a very interesting soil. It's kind of like a pumice lava rock mix. And the pumice is actually quite light. But I was able to scoop most of it up. But before, when I righted the tree the first time, I noticed that the root system was really quite extensive. So I think the tree is pretty healthy. And I don't think that the fall really damaged the tree as a whole, even though branches did break. But as you can see, the tree itself, you could never tell. It just looks like I just cut it back. You could never, if I didn't tell you it fell off the bench and limbs broke, you'd never even know. So there's my Trident maple. And as far as the tree, it's young, and it's tall, and it's thin, but it has some decent movement, and I'm showing you the pot kind of angled. You know, it could be this way. We have a scar right here, some dead wood. Not too bad. Another scar right there. But the one thing I'm thinking of doing, one thing I'm going to do for sure, and I guess let me bring the camera up closer, is I'm going to take this piece off right there. Just going to take this whole piece, because it's just the taper from here to here is just too much. So it's a possibility that I could go all the way to here, cut this whole thing off. And that's for a later date, but I definitely want to remove this guy and bring the leader up to here. So the leader will come from here and then up. And that actually works with the design of the tree too. So the only real major chopping I'm going to do on this guy is this little stump right there. And then I'll just have to keep you informed on how this thing does. I predict that it will continue to grow and do fine through the summer. And then in the fall, we'll just have to see. I'm actually contemplating on dumping ice on the top of the soil from December 1 through January 31st. 2 months of every night coating the top of the soil with ice cubes. It might induce dormancy. I don't know. It's all one giant experiment. And then the cuttings, it's hard to say. You know, after only 2 days, they look fine. So as many that root will just be a bonus. So there we go. Trident maple growing in zone 10. And part of the reason I also decided to try Trident maple is that I have hornbeam growing. And they have just about the same range as the Trident maple. They should not be growing this far south. The natural range ends like at least 100 miles north of where I live, at least. And yet I have a huge stock plant tree that I take my air layers of, and I have 5 or 6 air layers that are all thriving, and they're in heavy shade and they stay very wet. So that's going to be the scenario with this guy too. Heavy shade, probably not as wet, but you know, of course, never let it dry out. And then we'll see what happens with the cuttings. And that's it for this video. So if you have a Trident maple, and I don't know, give me some attaboys. Yeah, come on, you can do it, man. To hell with zone 10. Grow the thing. Well, hey, I know what. You can send me the money for a new refrigerator. It's only like, what, maybe $2,500? Well, no, actually, one person, they just bought a little, like a wine refrigerator that, just for the tree. It's like, anyway, probably shouldn't go there. So, Trident maple in zone 10. Stay tuned.